Admiral Jessica Hayes watched her hologram flicker against the ornate walls of the Galactic Council's emergency chamber, the massive, crystalline room, designed to host representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations, now held barely 50. The rest were either dead or fighting desperately across the galactic rim. "The Shadowman Collective has breached our final defensive line in the Perseus Arm," she reported, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "The Centaurian fleet is gone. Not defeated, gone. 43 ships and their crews, reduced to their base atomic components in less than 6 minutes." A low murmur rippled through the assembled representatives. The Centaurian fleet had boasted the most advanced energy shielding in known space. Their flagship alone had enough firepower to sterilize a small moon. "Our conventional weapons are worse than useless," Hayes continued, bringing up a tactical display. "Energy-based attacks are absorbed and redirected. Plasma torpedoes pass through their quantum-shifted forms without effect. Even our most advanced phase disruptors." The chamber shuddered. Warning lights pulsed along the crystalline walls as distant defense batteries opened fire. Through the transparent ceiling, delegates could see flashes of deadly purple light. Shadowmine scout vessels, probing the capital world's defenses. "They're here already." Chancellor Vexna stood, his insectoid form trembling. "The models predicted we had at least 2 standard cycles before." "The models were wrong." Hayes cut him off. "The Shadowmen aren't just getting stronger, they're getting faster. Each civilization they consume adds to their capabilities. They're learning, adapting, evolving. At their current rate of expansion, they'll reach the galactic core in less than 30 days." The chamber erupted in panic. Species that had been mortal enemies for millennia now huddled together, united in their terror. Hayes let them vent their fear for exactly 10 seconds before slamming her fist on the holographic podium. The sound, amplified by the chamber's acoustics, shocked them into silence. "We have one option left," she declared. "One that I've spent the last 3 days arguing about with High Command. They finally authorized me to present it, though they think it's suicide." She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. "We break the quarantine. We ask Earth for help." The silence that followed was deeper than the void between galaxies. Then, predictably, the shouting began. "The humans," Supreme Commander Lick scoffed, his crystalline form pulsing with red light. "Those primitives with their projectile weapons and crude fission drives. That quarantine was placed for a reason," added Ambassador Krell of the Silicon Consciousness. "Their approach to physics was dangerously unorthodox. Their weapons violated fundamental universal constants." Hayes let them rant, waiting for the crucial moment. It came from an unexpected source, a junior diplomat from the Regellian Empire, barely old enough to remember the quarantine's implementation. "But isn't that exactly what we need?" The young diplomat's voice quavered. "The Shadowmen operate on principles we understand all too well. They use the same fundamental forces we do, just more efficiently. But humans, they approached physics from an entirely different direction. They were developing weapons that could affect gravity itself, manipulate dark matter, even distort local spacetime." "Precisely." Hayes allowed herself a grim smile. "We quarantined humanity because their science scared us. They approached universal laws not as immutable constants, but as challenges to be overcome. When we said something was impossible, they treated it as a dare." Another explosion rocked the chamber, closer this time. Through the ceiling, they could see one of the capital's orbital defense platforms erupting into plasma. "The quarantine is 300 years old," Hayes pressed. "Think about it. We cut off an aggressive, innovative species with a proven talent for weapons development and a complete disregard for impossible. We told them they were alone in a hostile universe. What do you think they've been doing all this time?" The chamber fell silent again, but this time it was a silence of dawning realization. Even the most staunch opponents of contact found themselves wondering, what had humanity built, alone in their solar system, preparing for threats they could only imagine? A final explosion lit up the sky. The capital's outer defense grid had fallen. Chancellor Vexna raised his primary limb. The motion to contact Earth is approved. Gods help us all. Ambassador David Roberts stood at the viewport of the Council ship, Swift Justice, watching his homeworld solar system emerge from faster-than-light travel. He'd left Earth 3 centuries ago, one of the last diplomats posted off-world before the quarantine. Now, at age 342, thanks to Council life extension technology, he was returning home. By the eternal void, whispered High Scanner Vextil, her sensor stalks wavering. This can't be right. These readings. Roberts understood her shock. The Sol system he'd left behind bore little resemblance to what now filled their screens. Mercury had been transformed into a massive shipyard, its entire surface covered in construction facilities. Venus sported enormous atmospheric processors, while Mars gleamed under dozens of orbital rings. But Earth took his breath away. Are those Dyson rings? Captain Lixna adjusted her crystalline viewing apparatus. Multiple complete rings around a populated planet. That should be structurally impossible. Gravity manipulation, Roberts murmured, recognizing the telltale distortion fields from his pre-quarantine days. They've mastered it. Probably figured it out decades ago. He felt a strange mix of pride and apprehension. When the Council had quarantined Earth, they'd expected humanity to stagnate or destroy itself. Instead, his species had thrived. A transmission cut through their observations. Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space. This is Fleet Commander Emily Walker of the Earth Defense Force. Hold position and prepare for inspection. Before Lixna could respond, 3 ships simply appeared. No FTL signature, no distortion wake. They were just there, surrounding the Swift Justice in a perfect triangle formation. Robert studied their design with professional interest, sleek, predatory, and bristling with weapons that made his Council-trained eyes hurt to look at. This is Captain Lixna. We carry Council diplomatic authorization and Ambassador David Roberts, he cut in, requesting direct communication with Fleet Commander Walker. A pause. Then a hologram materialized on their bridge. A woman in her early 40s wearing a midnight blue uniform with silver tracings. Her smile was genuine, but her eyes were steel. Well, the prodigal son returns. Walker's hologram walked around the bridge, studying each Council member. And you brought friends. Must be serious if the Council's breaking their own quarantine. Roberts met her gaze. The galaxy is facing extinction, Commander. We need humanity's help. Interesting. Walker's smile widened slightly. Follow our escort to Luna Station. And don't worry about the weapons you're trying to scan, Captain Lixna. If we wanted you dead, you wouldn't have seen us coming. The hologram vanished. Lixna's crystalline form pulsed with embarrassment. She had indeed been attempting to analyze the human vessels. The journey to Luna was short but enlightening. Roberts watched his colleagues' reactions as they passed orbital shipyards building vessels that ignored basic laws of physics, research stations probing the fabric of reality itself, and defense platforms that could probably reduce their diplomatic vessel to atoms in seconds. Luna Station proved to be a massive complex extending both above and below the lunar surface. As they docked, Roberts noted the endless streams of data flowing across its quantum displays. Force projections, tactical analyses, and weapons tests. Humanity hadn't just been preparing for war. They'd been expecting it. Commander Walker met them in person, flanked by officers wearing uniforms with patches Roberts didn't recognize. Dark Matter Division, Quantum Warfare Section, Temporal Defense Unit. Welcome to Luna Station, she said, still wearing that knowing smile. I understand you have a problem with energy beings consuming entire civilizations. The Shadowmind Collective, Roberts confirmed. They've destroyed 3 major civilizations in the past month. Our weapons pass right through them. Walker exchanged glances with her officers. Several of them actually grinned. You mean they don't have physical forms? A weapons officer, Lieutenant Amanda Foster, according to her nameplate, looked like she'd just received an early birthday present. They're pure energy beings that can shift between quantum states at will. Yes, Lixna responded cautiously. That's what makes them invincible to conventional weapons. Oh, honey. Walker's smile turned predatory. That doesn't make them invincible. That makes them vulnerable. Lieutenant Foster, show them the Ghost Fleet specs. Let's explain to our guests why fighting energy beings is actually easier than fighting physical ones. Roberts felt a chill run down his spine. The Council had feared humanity's potential for violence. Looking at Walker's expression, he realized they hadn't feared it nearly enough. Captain Michael Turner stood in the U.S. Phantom's command center, watching the Council delegation's faces as they tried to process what they were seeing. The holographic display showed weapons systems that shouldn't exist, defense mechanisms that violated conventional physics, and power readings that made their sensors spark in protest. This can't be right, Supreme Commander Lix muttered, his crystalline form flickering with distress. These power signatures, you're drawing energy directly from quantum foam. Among other sources, Turner gestured to the massive engine core displayed in the center of the room. We found that zero-point energy becomes quite accessible once you stop treating quantum uncertainty as a limitation and start using it as a power source. Lieutenant Foster pulled up another schematic, this one showing the Phantom's primary weapons array. The real breakthrough came when we stopped fighting against physics and started fighting with it. Council races try to overpower natural laws. We prefer to persuade them. Ambassador Roberts stepped closer to the display, his enhanced eyes widening. Those aren't conventional weapon mounts. They're reality anchors. Close. Turner allowed himself a slight smile. We call them dimensional locks. The Shadowman's biggest advantage is their ability to shift between quantum states, right? These weapons don't try to destroy them. They force them to exist in a single state. Once they're locked in place, the gravity lances do the rest. The delegation moved through the ship's various sections, each reveal more shocking than the last. They passed crews conducting maintenance on dark matter torpedoes, technicians calibrating probability field generators, and engineers fine-tuning what looked suspiciously like localized time dilation projectors. This is impossible, Captain Lixna whispered, watching a demonstration of the Phantom's shield system. Instead of deflecting energy attacks, the barrier simply caused them to cease existing. You can't just delete energy from reality. Actually, you can. Chief Engineer Sarah Martinez joined them, her hands covered in exotic matter residue. You just have to convince space-time that the energy never existed in the first place. The math is pretty straightforward. Once you stop assuming causality is a one-way street. The tour reached its climax in the ship's primary fire control center. Lieutenant Foster brought up a tactical simulation showing the Phantom engaging a Shadowman battle group. The Council members watched in stunned silence as the human vessel's weapons literally rewrote the laws of physics in localized areas, turning the energy being's greatest strengths into fatal weaknesses. The trick, Turner explained, was realizing that energy beings still have to obey certain universal constants. They can shift between quantum states, but they can't escape the fundamental forces entirely. So we built weapons that target those forces directly. He highlighted different weapon systems as he spoke. Gravity lances that can create localized singularities. Quantum disruption beams that force wave functions to collapse in specific ways. Temporal inverters that can locally reverse entropy. We don't try to destroy the Shadowman. We simply make it impossible for them to exist in their current form. Ambassador Roberts had been quietly observing, but now he spoke up. The quarantine. You knew it was coming, didn't you? Before it happened. Turner exchanged glances with his crew. We suspected. Humanity's first contact with the Council showed us how different our approaches to science were. We knew it would either end in collaboration or isolation. So we prepared for both. The Ghost Fleet was conceived the day the quarantine began, Foster added. We figured any civilization advanced enough to lock us in our solar system was advanced enough to be a threat. So we started building ships that could fight enemies operating on completely different laws of physics. Commander Walker, who had been silently watching the delegation's reactions, stepped forward. The Phantom is just one of 30 ships in the Ghost Fleet, each with its own unique experimental weapons. We've spent 3 centuries preparing to fight enemies we could only imagine. Now we finally get to test our theories against a real target. The ship's quantum communications array chimed. Walker checked the message and her expression hardened. Speaking of which, we just received word that a Shadowman scout force has been detected near Proxima Centauri. They're probably trying to figure out why this system is quarantined. Turner turned to his crew, his voice carrying the weight of 300 years of preparation. Well then, let's go introduce ourselves. Lieutenant Foster, power up the reality drives. Chief Martins, bring the dimensional locks online. It's time to show the galaxy why they were right to fear us. As the Phantom's engines hummed to life, the Council delegation finally understood the true purpose of the quarantine. It hadn't imprisoned humanity. It had given them time to become something far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The U.S. Phantom dropped out of dimensional shift near Proxima Centauri. Its reality drives leaving ripples in spacetime that made the Council observers' instruments scramble. Captain Turner stood at the command center, watching the tactical display as 5 Shadowman scout ships approached their position. They're curious, Lieutenant Foster noted, analyzing their movement patterns. No attack formation. They've never seen anything like our drive signature before. Let them get closer. Turner's voice remained calm as he watched the energy beings approach. Ambassador Roberts, you might want to record this. Your Council friends back home won't believe it otherwise. The Shadowman vessels glowed with purple-black energy, their forms shifting between states of matter like liquid darkness. As they drew closer, the Council delegation could feel the familiar dread that accompanied their presence, the psychic weight of countless consumed civilizations. They're scanning us, Chief Martinez reported from engineering, trying to figure out what we are. Their energy patterns suggest confusion. She paused, checking another reading. Sir, they're attempting to phase through our outer hull. Turner's smile was cold. Activate the dimensional locks. The space around the Phantom shimmered as reality itself solidified. The nearest Shadowman vessel suddenly found itself trapped in a single quantum state, its ability to shift between forms completely neutralized. The alien vessel's energy pattern shifted from confident purple to panicked red. Target locked, Foster announced, her fingers dancing across the gravity lance controls. Permission to return their hello. Show them why humanity sleeps soundly at night, Lieutenant. The gravity lance fired, not a beam of light or stream of particles, but a focused cone of distorted spacetime. Where it struck the trapped Shadowman vessel, reality buckled. The energy being found itself compressed into a space smaller than an atom, then stretched across several light seconds of space simultaneously. The Council observers watched in stunned silence as the supposedly invincible energy being came apart at the quantum level, its consciousness scattered across multiple dimensions. First kill confirmed, Foster reported with professional satisfaction. The others are reacting. They're attempting to coordinate a response. The remaining 4 Shadowman vessels spread out, their forms pulsing with angry red energy. They launched attacks that had annihilated countless Council ships. Beams of pure entropy, quantum destruction fields, consciousness-erasing waves. Every attack simply ceased to exist as it approached the Phantom. Probability nullifiers holding steady, Martinez called out. Their attacks have a 0% chance of existing in our local spacetime. Nice try, though. Turner leaned forward. Lieutenant Foster, demonstrate our point defense capabilities. With pleasure, sir. Foster activated the Phantom's secondary weapons array. Dozens of smaller gravity lances came online, each targeting a different point in spacetime. The Shadowman vessels found themselves fighting not just in 3-dimensional space, but across multiple temporal axes simultaneously. One scout ship discovered its past and future selves occupying the same space. Another found itself existing in every possible quantum state at once, and none of them viable. The third simply stopped, frozen in a moment of time that would never end. The final scout tried to retreat, its energy form vibrating with what the sensors identified as pure terror. Before it could escape, Foster locked it in a temporal loop. "Got you," she whispered, then triggered the dark matter torpedoes. The council delegation watched as the last Shadowman vessel was torn apart not by energy or matter, but by the very forces that held reality together. When it was over, nothing remained of the scout force except quantum echoes and violated laws of physics. Ambassador Roberts broke the silence first. That wasn't a battle. It was an execution. No, Turner corrected him, already studying the combat data. That was a field test. Now we know our weapons work exactly as designed. He turned to the council observers, his expression deadly serious. The Shadowmen think they understand power because they can shift between energy states. We'll show them what real power looks like, the power to rewrite the rules they thought they were breaking. Lieutenant Foster's console chimed. "Sir, we're picking up a massive surge of Shadowman signatures. Looks like the scouts got a signal out before we engage. Long-range sensors show at least 30 capital ships heading this way." Turner's smile returned, fiercer than before. "Good. Time to show them what this ship can really do when we stop holding back. Chief Martinez, divert all power to the reality drives. Lieutenant Foster, prepare a full weapons spread." He looked at his crew, seeing the same anticipation in their eyes that he felt. The Shadowmen are about to learn why the galaxy quarantined us. Not because we were dangerous, but because we were too dangerous to be allowed to roam free. 30 Shadowmind capital ships. Fleet Commander Walker's hologram announced to the assembled Ghost Fleet captains. Perfect odds for a proper field demonstration. The U.S. Phantom hung in space alongside 29 other human vessels, each uniquely designed to break different laws of physics. The council delegation had been distributed among the ships to observe what humanity called creative problem-solving in action. Captain Turner watched the approaching Shadowman fleet through the quantum imaging array. Their massive forms rippled with deadly purpose, purple-black energy cascading across their fluid shapes. The energy beings had arranged themselves in a perfect geometric formation, logical, orderly, and completely predictable. "Remember your orders," Walker continued, her holographic form gleaming with anticipation. "No coordination, no formation, pure chaos protocol. Show them why fighting humans is like fighting a nightmare. Nothing makes sense until it's too late." The Ghost Fleet responded by breaking apart in seemingly random directions. The U.S. Nightshade engaged its probability drives, existing in multiple locations simultaneously. The U.S. Paradox began moving backward through time while firing forward. The U.S. Stormbreaker split itself across 11 different dimensions. Ambassador Roberts, still aboard the Phantom, watched in fascination as the ordered human fleet dissolved into deliberate mayhem. This isn't a battle strategy, he realized. This is weaponized insanity. Exactly. Lieutenant Foster grinned as she calibrated the gravity lenses. The Shadowmen based their entire civilization on manipulating universal constants. We based ours on breaking them. The Shadowmen struck first, launching a coordinated barrage that would have atomized a conventional fleet. Space itself seemed to scream as entropy beams, and quantum dissolution fields reached out toward the scattered human vessels. Nothing happened as expected. The U.S. Nightshade's quantum uncertainty field caused the attacks to miss in all possible timelines simultaneously. The U.S. Paradox's temporal wake made the energy weapons hit where the ship had never been. The U.S. Stormbreaker simply allowed the attacks to pass through the dimensions it wasn't currently occupying. All ships, Walker's voice carried across the fleet channels, demonstrate why humanity doesn't play fair. The Ghost Fleet responded with 30 different impossible attacks. The U.S. Phantom's gravity lances twisted spacetime into knots. The U.S. Nightshade fired probability torpedoes that caused portions of the Shadowman fleet to quantum tunnel into their own weapons fire. The U.S. Paradox created temporal loops that trapped enemy ships in their own past. They're trying to adapt, Foster reported, watching the Shadowman formation shift, attempting to match our chaos with their own random patterns. Chief Martinez laughed from her engineering station. That's cute. They think chaos can be calculated. The Shadowman's attempts at unpredictability proved their undoing. Their energy forms flickered between states in desperate patterns, trying to find configurations that would protect them from the laws of physics themselves being turned against them. Now they understand, Turner said softly, watching another enemy capital ship implode under its own quantum uncertainty. We didn't spend 3 centuries preparing to fight them. We spent 3 centuries preparing to fight everything. Every nightmare, every horror story, every theoretical physics paper that suggested something impossible. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 15 minutes. When it ended, the space around Proxima Centauri was littered with quantum echoes and violated physical laws. 30 Shadowmind capital ships had been reduced to scattered energy patterns and broken universal constants. After action analysis coming in, Foster announced, studying the data streams. No Ghost Fleet casualties, multiple confirmed physics violations, several new fundamental forces discovered and immediately weaponized. She paused, double-checking one reading. Sir, the Council observers are requesting permission to be transferred back to their diplomatic vessel. Scared them, did we? Turner asked, noting the pale faces of their guests. Not scared, Captain, Ambassador Roberts corrected, his enhanced eyes still wide from what he witnessed. Terrified. We just watched 30 ships rewrite the laws of reality as casual battle tactics. The Council feared humanity might develop dangerous weapons during the quarantine. He shook his head slowly. We never imagined you'd turn physics itself into a weapon. Commander Walker's hologram reappeared, her expression grim. Don't celebrate yet. Long-range sensors are picking up quantum disturbances throughout the sector. The Shadowmen are coming in force this time. Her smile turned predatory. Good. Time to show them what happens when we stop playing around and get serious. Technical Director James Harrison stood before the gathered council representatives aboard Luna Station, his presentation displaying centuries of human preparation behind him. The recent battle footage played on endless loop, human ships casually violating physics in ways that made the council's greatest scientists question their understanding of reality. You don't understand yet, Harrison said, his voice carrying the weight of generations of human innovation. The Ghost Fleet isn't just a military project. It's humanity's answer to every nightmare we've ever had. He brought up archived images from Earth's pre-contact era, science fiction movies, spaced horror novels, theoretical physics papers that bordered on fantasy. While you were building defenses against known threats, we were imagining every possible threat. When you said, that's impossible, we asked, but what if it wasn't? Ambassador Roberts watched his fellow council members' reactions. The crystalline form of Supreme Commander Lix pulsed with distress as Harrison pulled up weapon schematics that seemed to laugh at conventional physics. These aren't just weapons, Harrison continued, highlighting systems that could unravel reality itself. They're solutions to problems we invented. Energy beings that consume civilizations. We had a dozen movies about those before we left Earth's atmosphere. Quantum shifting entities. Every other episode of our science fiction shows. Lieutenant Foster, who had joined the presentation, pulled up her own data. The Shadowmen's tactics are predictable because they're logical. They do what works, what makes sense according to the laws of physics. But humans, she grinned. We wrote stories about breaking those laws before we even understood them. The tactical display showed footage from the recent battle. The U.S. Phantom creating localized singularities. The U.S. Nightshade existing in quantum superposition. The U.S. Paradox attacking through time itself. You quarantined us because our approach to physics frightened you. Harrison explained. But isolation just meant we had no one to tell us what was impossible. No peer review, no established doctrine. Just pure human imagination given 3 centuries to run wild. He brought up images of Luna Station's research divisions, the dark matter labs, the quantum warfare department, the temporal mechanics division. Every crazy theory, every wild hypothesis. We pursued them all. Because in our stories, the monsters always found a way through conventional defenses. The council delegation watched in stunned silence as Harrison revealed project after project. Weapons that could erase things from causality. Shields that didn't deflect energy but rewrote probability so attacks never happened. Engines that treated faster than light travel as a quaint starting point. The Shadowmind are powerful, Foster added, but they're still playing by the rules. They bend physics, yes, but they respect its fundamental laws. We stopped doing that the moment we realized the laws were more like guidelines. Commander Walker joined them, fresh from coordinating the Ghost Fleet's preparations for the coming Shadowman assault. You want to know the real reason we're winning. The Shadowmen evolved to be perfect energy beings. Humanity evolved to be paranoid apes who turn their nightmares into weapons. Harrison nodded, pulling up one final display. A map showing hundreds of theoretical threats humanity had prepared for. The Shadowmind. They're just one possibility we planned for. We have weapons designed to fight cosmic horrors, elder gods, dimensional invaders. Anything our writers could imagine, our engineers built countermeasures for. But that's insane, one council member protested. You built weapons to fight things that don't exist. Yet, Walker corrected with a predatory smile. Things that don't exist yet. And now we've encountered something that does exist. The Shadowmind. And wouldn't you know it? Our impossible weapons work perfectly against them. The station's alert system pulsed. The massive Shadowman fleet they detected was getting closer, thousands of energy vessels preparing to attack humanity's home system. They think they're coming to punish us for destroying their scouts, Harrison said, watching the tactical display. They don't understand. We've spent 3 centuries building weapons to fight our worst nightmares. And compared to what we imagined. He smiled. The Shadowmind are practically tame. The council delegation finally understood. They hadn't quarantined a dangerous species. They'd given humanity unlimited time to prepare for every horror they could conceive. And now, faced with a real threat, those preparations were proving devastatingly effective. Lieutenant Amanda Foster stood at her tactical station aboard the U.S. Phantom, watching the Shadowman's latest attack pattern through quantum imaging arrays. The energy beings had spent the last 6 hours trying to adapt to human combat tactics, and she found their attempts fascinating. They're learning, she reported, highlighting the new formation on the main display. See how they're mimicking our chaotic movements. Trying to be unpredictable. Captain Turner nodded, studying the ethereal dance of purple-black energy forms. But they're still thinking linearly. Even their chaos follows patterns. The massive Shadowman fleet, nearly 3,000 vessels strong, had arrived at the edge of the Sol system expecting an easy victory. Instead, they'd found themselves in a nightmare of their own making. Every time they adapted to one human tactic, the Ghost Fleet simply changed the rules of engagement. New attack pattern detected. Chief Martinez called from engineering. They're attempting to match our quantum state shifts. Foster analyzed the data and smiled. They don't get it, do they? They're trying to solve human insanity with logic. The battle unfolded across 11 dimensions and 3 temporal axes. The Shadowman fleet split into smaller groups, each attempting to mirror the Ghost Fleet's apparent randomness. Energy weapons fired in erratic patterns. Quantum states shifted unpredictably. But there was still order in their chaos, still logic in their madness. Flag bridge, this is Foster. She keyed the command channel. I think I've found their weakness. Commander Walker's hologram appeared instantly. Go ahead, Lieutenant. They're energy beings, right? Pure consciousness evolved beyond physical form. But that evolution followed rules, natural laws, logical progression. Foster highlighted the enemy fleet's movement patterns. Even now, they're trying to defeat us by understanding us, by finding the pattern in our chaos. Walker's expression turned predatory. But there is no pattern, is there? Exactly. Foster's fingers danced across her console, compiling battle data. Every time they adapt to one of our tactics, we switch to something completely different. Not just different weapons, different laws of physics entirely. They can't predict us because we're not trying to make sense. Turner leaned forward, understanding dawning. We're not fighting a battle. We're fighting a philosophy. Their entire civilization is built on mastering natural laws, while we built ours on breaking them. Walker finished. Lieutenant Foster, transmit your analysis to the fleet. All ships. Chaos Protocol Delta. Every vessel picks a different fundamental force to violate. Let's show them what happens when humanity really cuts loose. The Ghost Fleet's response was devastating. The U.S. Phantom created zones where causality ran backward. The U.S. Nightshade turned probability itself into a weapon, forcing Shadowman vessels to exist in states that had zero chance of survival. The U.S. Paradox split the time stream, attacking the same target simultaneously across multiple futures. Foster watched the enemy fleet's reactions through her quantum sensors. She could almost feel their growing panic as they tried to comprehend what they were facing. The Shadowmen had evolved beyond emotion, beyond physical form, but they couldn't evolve beyond their own fundamental nature. They're breaking formation, she announced, unable to keep the satisfaction from her voice. Their attempts at chaos are collapsing back into patterns. They can't help themselves. They're trying to make sense of nonsense. The battle space became a graveyard of broken physical laws and shattered universal constants. Shadowman vessels found themselves trapped in logical paradoxes their energy forms couldn't process. Reality itself seemed to buckle under the strain of human creativity unleashed. Signal from the enemy flagship, Martins reported. They're requesting communication. Walker's hologram smiled. Put them through. Let's hear what they have to say. The quantum communications array hummed to life. The Shadowman's response came not in words, but in pure conceptual energy. A message that translated itself directly into understanding in human minds. What do you know to follow the AE laws? Foster laughed. 3 centuries of human preparation, distilled into a single confused question. Walker's response was pure humanity. Because laws exist to be broken, and rules are just suggestions, you evolved to master the universe. We evolved to challenge it. Care to guess which approach works better in a fight? The Shadowman fleet's energy patterns fluctuated with what the sensors identified as pure existential terror. They had come expecting to find prey, and instead found something far worse. A species that treated physics itself as optional and impossibility as a personal challenge. The Galactic Council's emergency chamber fell silent as the battle footage concluded. They had just watched humanity's ghost fleet systematically dismantle the most powerful enemy the galaxy had ever faced, using weapons that shouldn't exist and tactics that defied comprehension. Admiral Jessica Hayes stood at the podium where, just weeks ago, she had pleaded for permission to contact Earth. Now she watched her fellow council members struggle to process what they had witnessed. The Shadowman fleet has retreated beyond the galaxy's edge, she reported. Their remaining vessels are broadcasting a simple message across all frequencies. The quarantine system is forbidden. Captain Michael Turner stepped forward, his dress uniform adorned with newly created medals. The Council had no existing commendations for rewriting physics as a combat tactic. We've received numerous requests from Council worlds for defensive technology sharing, Turner said, his expression carefully neutral. Commander Walker asked me to convey humanity's response. We agree with one condition. The chamber stirred. After witnessing human technology in action, many had expected Earth to maintain its military advantage. Chancellor Vexna raised his primary limb. Name your condition, Captain. Joint Fleet Operations, Turner replied. We'll share our technology, But we want to train alongside Council forces, not just to teach our methods, but to learn yours. Humanity spent 3 centuries preparing for every imaginable threat. Imagine what we could accomplish by combining that with your actual experience. Lieutenant Foster, standing beside him, activated a holographic display showing schematics for a new class of vessel. We're already designing hybrid ships that incorporate both Council and human approaches. Conventional physics and impossible physics, working in harmony. Ambassador Roberts, now Earth's official representative to the Council, couldn't help but smile at his colleagues' reactions. The ship designs violated fewer laws of physics than the Ghost Fleet vessels, but used those violations more efficiently. There's something you need to understand, Turner continued. The Ghost Fleet. Those ships were built to fight nightmares. They're what happens when you give engineers 300 years to prepare for horror stories. But now that we're facing real threats instead of imagined ones, we can focus our innovation more precisely. Technical Director Harrison joined them, bringing up data from Luna Station's research divisions. We've already identified 47 ways to improve Council shield technology using localized probability manipulation. Your faster-than-light drives could be enhanced with our quantum uncertainty principles. This is just the beginning. Supreme Commander Lix's crystalline form pulsed with concern. But your weapons, the ability to rewrite reality itself, such power, is precisely why we want to work together, Turner finished. Humanity spent 3 centuries asking what if, and building weapons to answer those questions. Now we're asking a new question. What if we took all that creativity, all that impossible innovation, and used it to protect rather than destroy? Foster highlighted a particular ship design, a vessel that incorporated Council energy manipulation with human reality distortion. We call this the Guardian class. It's designed not to break physics, but to stabilize it, to create zones of safety where natural laws can't be violated by anyone, including us. The chamber erupted in discussion. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just offering military support. They were proposing to revolutionize the galaxy's entire approach to science and defense. The quarantine taught us something valuable, Turner concluded. It taught us to question everything, to never accept impossible as an answer. But it also taught us isolation, and we've had enough of that. We want to join the galactic community not as conquerors or saviors, but as partners. Chancellor Vexna called for a vote. The result was unanimous. Humanity would join the Council, bringing with them their impossible ships, their reality-breaking weapons, and most importantly, their unique perspective on what was possible. As the chamber cleared, Admiral Hayes approached Turner. The Shadowmen won't stay away forever. They'll adapt, try to find counters to our technology. Turner smiled. Of course they will, and we'll be ready. Because if there's one thing humanity learned during our isolation, it's that there's no such thing as an ultimate weapon or a perfect defense. There's only the endless challenge of imagining what comes next, and now we have an entire galaxy to imagine it with. The quarantine had ended, but its true impact was just beginning, as humanity prepared to share its gift for turning imagination into reality with a galaxy that was only beginning to understand what impossible truly meant.